It's Thursday, July 24th, 2014. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, we're talking about Dashcon because it is an example of every bad con ever.
Let's do this.
And long openers really annoy Scott.
I'm going to find the thing that annoys
There's
Rim.
nothing you can do that annoys me more than annoys you doing it.
I'll just do blatant destructive things like break all your shit.
That's not annoying. That's
I'll
just
pee in your
criminal.
bed.
I'll just call the police.
What are they going to do? They
Arrest
come
you?
home, there's pee in your bed, and I'm not here.
Oh, I'll call the police anyway. Genetic testing. I got money. I could actually make the police do stuff if I needed to.
Okay, this is water with urine in it.
Yeah. Also, there's a camera in there. I'd have video of you peeing.
It's aimed at your bed? I thought it was aimed at your bunnies.
It would get me enough evidence. You'd have to go disable that drop cam without it being obvious you disabled it.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, anyway, it's Thursday. It's the lounge. Talk about whatever here on Geek Nights. So, you got any news? Anything?
I mean, it's kind of hard to do news right now because we're on like the cusp of news.
Oh,
pretty
what do you
much
mean?
in every realm of geekery.
So we're on the edge of a new Cold War. Multiple airliners full of people have disappeared, crashed, or been shot down in recent memory.
And there's nothing to say about any of it.
There's a lot to say about it. You just don't have anything to say about it.
It happened. What is there to say?
All right, a game came out. What is there to say?
That's right. Exactly. The point is to talk about things people don't know so that they learn something.
I thought the point of Geek Nights was to talk about things people do know for commentary purposes, opinions. We're not news.
What opinion? You can't have an opinion. It's like having an opinion on something like that is having an opinion on the weather. Like, this rain, it's not good.
No, because one, if you're into weather, that's a fascinating conversation. And two, if you're into geopolitics, like me and Skojo,
there is nothing any human being listening to this show can do to act on the fact that planes were shot down. It matters not to their lives in any way whatsoever.
We could go there.
That is not something you want to do. I recommend you do not do that.
We could go and do some investigative journalism.
I recommend you do not do this. Anyone listening, that's a bad idea.
A while ago, some of our friends got married. It was an awesome wedding. Scott took some really great pictures. All my pictures are sitting on this SD card that I'm fondling right now that I haven't even put it in a Lightroom
Why
yet.
are you fondling things? Stop fondling.
That's what but Black Dynamite. But last night we were at a bar and they were showing us all the pictures from their honeymoon in Germany. And it was good pictures, but I noticed something in a bunch of the pictures that they did not notice, and this ended up being ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a picture. They're sitting like in a restaurant and they're kind of hugging each other like, oh, we're a cute couple. And their friend takes the picture. In the background, there's a woman with a zoom lens and a fancy camera that looks like it's pointed right at them.
Okay.
From like back and to the right.
Mm-hmm.
They took a bunch of pictures in a row there. The next frame, like the next picture, she has lowered the camera a bit and is looking right at them and has a raised eyebrow. And then the next picture, she's just like looking at him like, uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
It is 100% her not realizing that she photobombed them and taking pictures of them doing their thing at a restaurant.
Okay.
I thought that was hilarious.
It's not hilarious in any way.
It's pretty hilarious. You should see the pictures. She's got the raised eye. It's the raised eyebrow of approval. It's the proceed.
Okay. Yeah, but no, the cusp of nerdy news because the Comic-Con is starting Wednesday.
Oh, I was gonna talk about that as my real news.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to go to it because we're gonna find out all the news on the internet without having to go there.
My news was gonna be that SDCC is happening now, and I think SDCC is actually one of the worst conventions.
Never having been to it, I agree.
Well, watching Twitter, and I noticed that a bunch of people are tweeting along the same lines, and Daryl Surratt was leading this charge.
Great.
That all the news that comes out of SDCC, not just the news, but like all the tweets, all the blog posts, pretty much everything, it's pretty much focused entirely on the big reveals and the big like events and screenings and the expo.
So there's no reason to go. If that's what you want, there's no reason to be there. And you got to be in the room when the guy makes the announcement, rather than finding out on the internet 5 seconds later.
It's interesting that no one talks fucking anything about like the other events, like the panels and workshops and stuff that happens. Like
because any media is only going there to go report on things that they think will make people read their media.
I think it's
which
one
are
step
big
further.
Hollywood things.
I think the attendees who self-report also only go there for those things.
Yeah, look at the biggest line is the
Hall H.
The infamous Hall H. That was the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and it was the same thing with the New York Comic Con. All those kinds of cons, a lot of people don't seem to realize that, like, all the media and all the people in the world who don't go to a lot of conventions look at those cons like the mecca of nerdery and
even
whatever.
people go to other nerd cons, all they see is cosplay.
Yep.
Because they're not actually participating. They're just sort of standing on the outside. They don't really see what's going on. And anything that is going on has nothing that is good to report on in mainstream media and nothing good to take photos of. So it basically doesn't get broadcast to anyone who's not in on it.
So these cons basically all have the same thing.
Also, a lot of people who go to San Diego Comic-Con don't know of or go to any other con.
Yep, granted.
It's like the same way that Band-Aid is Band-Aid, Comic-Con is Comic-Con. There aren't any others.
Granted, I found some people who call other conventions like Kineticon a Comic-Con.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
But these cons, you don't go to them to do anything there. You go to them to walk in, walk around, pay for an autograph, and then get the fuck out of there.
And all the people that are worth seeing are at other conventions. Right? Katie Cook has some giant-ass line. It's like, you can just see her pretty much anywhere. You know how many conventions she works a year?
Dude, I remember
she does a
years
convention
ago,
like every weekend. Why
like,
would you pay to go to San Diego Comic-Con to see her when you can see her like in anywhere near where you live?
I was about to say, there was a time you could say the same thing about Gabe and Tycho, because you go to Penny Arcade Expo, really hard to see them. Like, if you want to get the autograph, you stand in that huge line. That one time they were at the New York Comic Con, there was like no line, and they're just sitting at a table like,
Yep.
So yeah, Comic Con just kind of sucks. I mean, it's telling that the New York Comic Con, which is the same damn thing, there's no difference between these two for any like actual attendee
New York Comic Con
reason.
is much smaller.
Yeah, but the size of both of them is deceiving because it's pretty much a turnstile.
Mm-hmm.
But
I actually saw numbers for Anime Expo that were posted that included both Turnstile and Unique.
oh, maybe we're finally making some.
They said their Unique was 80,000 and their Turnstile was like 200,000 something.
Yep. You know how you get a unique of 80,000? Because they're still missing the third metric. The metric that I actually want is maximum simultaneous. Because that's the measure of how big the con is. Otacon's 30,000 people at a time. But uniques and Turnstile actually both kind of count that churn.
Well,
because
Otacon's also max 30,000 people, so I don't know if it's actually 30,000 at a time.
yeah, well, max 30,000 means they sell 30,000 badges, and all those people have the right to be in the convention center.
Right, so isn't that what the Unique of Anime Expo is?
No.
80,000?
So PAX's unique is way higher than his maximum simultaneous because single-day badges. A Friday, Saturday, and Sunday badge are still 3 unique people because there's no way they're going to count those as one person. They're not going to keep track of, well, this person bought 2 single-day badges, so that
That's
actually
right.
counts as, yeah.
Yep.
They sell single-day badges nominally, and not just PAX, but any con, nominally, so that more people can experience it, but really, because it gives them a better number for the people who pay for booths.
Yep. Anyway, so the one thing the news that came out of Comic-Con that's actually worth paying attention to right now, besides all the movie garbage and whatever and shit you don't care about, new Jeff Lemire comic, always a winner. But this is interesting because when I read the description, there's positive and negative, right? So I'm going to read the description. It's only 2 paragraphs.
All right, I actually haven't read anything about this yet.
So 10 years, it's by Jeff Lemire, and the artist is this other guy.
It's not Ant-Man, is it?
No.
Okay.
It's from Image. It's independent.
I typed SDCC just now into Google, and the top news is, here's Marvel's Ant-Man Comic-Con poster.
Yeah. Anyway, 10 years ago, massive planet-side robots called the Harvesters materialized without warning and invaded the orbits of all the United Galactic Council's worlds, wiping out entire planets and civilizations before disappearing again.
All right, in Culture World, that's a hegemon.
Star Control. Anyway,
Yeah.
in a fear-fueled response to this machine holocaust, the galaxy blamed millions of robotic companions whom they suspected somehow spawning the Harvesters. All robots and androids were immediately outlawed, and ruthless bounty hunters called Scrappers were charged with scouring the universe for any surviving robots. Astro Boy.
Yeah, I was about to say, well, one, Scrappers, when you introduce your own proper noun in your pitch of the thing, that's usually one of the warning signs of a bad anime.
Yep. The incredibly like artificial boy, Astro Boy, Tim 21, may hold the secrets to the origin of the Harvesters deep in his machine DNA.
Also, Dune, machine apocalypse, so we get rid of all machines that are smart.
And as a result, is the most wanted robot in the universe. with only his small pet bot Bandit and the lumbering mining droid Driller at his side, Space Dandy. Tim 21 goes on the run. Before long, the entire galaxy is looking for this ragtag group of unlikely companions as they make their way from one exotic planet to the next, with new foes advancing on them at every turn. Saga.
I feel like the term ragtag is also a warning sign.
I don't know who wrote the description, but it's like every cliche of awesomeness put together. So I don't know how to feel about it because Jeff Lemire has done almost no wrong.
Yep.
And these are all cliches, which is bad.
But when you
but
combine
they're
them
all
all,
awesome cliches combined, which is good.
But at the same time, when you tell someone that something is everything they like combined, that's usually what a snake oil salesman tells you.
I know. So
I've been burned by that before with certain media.
it's not like I'm not going to read it. I just have doubts that it's going to somehow come over the top of Saga to become the best comic on the shelf, which it probably won't be.
So
But it could be good.
So back in Ant-Man territory.
I just wanted to talk about comics on Thursday because I think some Thursday people probably aren't reading comics and they should.
Yeah. What comic should they be reading though?
Saga.
Yeah, pretty much. Saga is the comic, or if you have any friend who is like, I'm not really into comics, just give him Saga. And
That's the only comic you got to read right now.
yeah.
You don't worry about anything else.
Things of the day. So I got to preface this. This video is a little special to me because it reminded me of something that happened to us at a wonderful Otakon. Oh my God. This was like 2004, I want to say.
Okay.
This was a long goddamn time ago. We're at an Otakon, walking around, and out of nowhere, a dude just says, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, can I have your attention? So the crowd...
It's showtime. It's
Yep.
showtime. Showtime.
We didn't live in New York yet, so I wasn't used to showtime. So I look, we both look, our friends look, and there's a guy, and he's holding his hand up, and in that hand is a condom.
Uh-oh.
It's out of its package.
It might be show too much time.
He proceeds to then pull the condom over his head and then inflate it through his nose and mouth over his head into a space suit and then pop it. And then he took a bow
A
and kept
classic
walking.
parlor trick.
It was wonderful to behold.
Mm-hmm.
So this gentleman on YouTube has taken this to the next level. He put a hat on the condom first and then inflated it using only his nose. I invite you all to watch this YouTube video. It is delightful.
All right. I have 2 YouTube videos, Daddy 2PP.
No, I can't complain because I have often done the 2 video thing.
Right. As Rim alluded to in the opening bit, right? I've been doing more photography, right? And photography's sort of weird because it is both science and art at the same time.
Yep.
And it's like you open up Photoshop and it's like, where do I put these knobblies? It's like there is no right answer where to put the knobblies. Every answer is the right answer.
The wrong answer is, let's make that sky more dramatic.
Maybe. So here's 2 really interesting videos that helped me learn a lot, and they're pretty short, right? So in the one video, the guy shows you the difference between RAW versus JPEG, right? And basically, RAW versus JPEG is all about, he's like, how much data, it's like people talk about there's more data in the RAW file. Like, what the fuck does that actually mean? There's more data in the RAW file, right? I mean, it's the same resolution, there's the same number of pixels. Like, what does that actually mean when there's more data in there? And he actually shows you what it means when there's more data in there.
You can make the sky so much more dramatic.
Not really, but it's like you watch this and it's like, oh, I get it, right? And the other video is realistic HDR photography. It's like only 7 minutes long, right? Both of these are like less than 10 minutes. And basically, you have a RAW file, it has more data. If you do HDR, you're basically taking multiple photos of the same exact thing and combining them to have one file with a fuck ton of data.
Like more data than any monitor you'll ever use could display. Like you can't even display all of it in one photo.
Well, maybe, but
you got to export that shit.
Right. So, for example, right, let's say I take a photo in a room and the room has a window and the sun is shining through the window, right? Well, if I want to see what's outside the window, I have to have a lot less exposure, to get to, otherwise that sunlight shining through is just going to be a big white spot on the photo.
Yep.
I'm not going to be able to see anything outside the window at all. Even with RAW, I won't be able to see what's outside the window really. But if I do that, then the inside of the room is going to be really dark. All the shadows near the furniture. It's like you don't have to see anything, right? But if I expose the photo for the furniture so you can see the carpet and the flowers and whatever's in the room, this is going to be the big white spot. So what you do is you take 2 pictures or more than 2 pictures and you combine them. And then when you're photoshopping, you can edit it in such a way that you can see outside the window and inside the room at the correct exposure, which is what it would look like if you were looking at the room with your eyeballs, right? So he shows you how that's done and how you can use the HDR techniques and whatever without, you could use them to make some things that look crazy, unrealistic, and like ridiculous high contrast that's, stupid and tacky.
Yep.
But you can also use it this way for reals.
Of course, those like really like fake looking pictures are sometimes useful in a sense that like if you take a picture of a big cityscape or something, those pictures are good if you want to like use that picture to
impress people, make it desktop wallpapers.
Oh yeah, or more like if I wanted to like try to do something weird, like count how many people are in that picture.
That's not gonna help you with that so much.
They would, because I guess if there's a lot of different varied white levels and light levels all over the place in this giant picture, I can just have all the data and a normalized view where I can see everything at about the same level, even if it's pretty tacky.
Not
because it doesn't look natural at all because everything's at like the same brightness. Yeah,
you're not gonna get any more detail, really.
I didn't, not more detail like that.
Then how does it help with counting people? I don't know what you're talking about.
So if there's people like in the shadow of a building or not in the shadow of a building,
you'll still
like
be able to tell there's a person there.
Maybe.
And it would only help if you wanted to be able to like see all the details on the human being. Like, I want to really be able to see the details in their skin.
I want to figure out how many people have brown eyes.
Yeah. Okay, whatever.
You know what's funny? Because I got this drop cam and it's got a real set of lenses in it, so I can zoom in on the image, right? But then I zoom in and it's gonna be all blurry, and then I can hit the enhance button because then it'll like focus on that area. But if I do that, then it messes up the stream because now the whole stream is focused on that area because there's only one lens, obviously, and it's a live stream. So it basically has the effect that amounts to the CSI zoom and enhance.
Okay.
Yeah. Camera's actually pretty good, though. I'm enjoying it so far. So, in the meta moment, the book club book is still A Canticle for Leibowitz. I've read every culture book that was ever written while waiting for Scott to read this book. All of them.
I just choose not to spend my time on reading when the sun is out.
I thought the whole point of this was to read.
It is. When the sun is out, you probably shouldn't read.
Read up on the beach.
When have I gone to the beach?
You want to go to the beach the weekend before PAX?
I don't know if I can. We'll see.
Well, what could you be doing that week?
I have no idea.
Okay. We should go to the beach.
We'll find out.
Go read on the beach. So yeah, the book is A Canticle for Leibowitz. It's one of the first apocalypse books of the modern era. It's pretty good. I hope you know a lot about Catholics or it won't make a lot of sense.
I think I know enough.
I think you know enough. Knowing about Jews also helps.
I know a lot about that.
Yep. Though the ebook I had didn't actually show any of the characters.
Hebrew characters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was annoying. It was just asterisks.
Oh, okay. Well, it's not like you could read them.
No, but you could recognize them. It's pretty obvious what they say anyway.
Even when they're all just asterisks?
We were at Kineticon. It was awesome. I published a bunch of data from Kineticon. Take that every other fucking convention. And I'm going to publish that data in a computer-readable format, not just images for you guys, once I finish redacting it and hopefully enriching it with some information like what categories the panels are in, like anime or writing or whatever. So stay tuned for that. I hope people do cool stuff with this data. I hope other cons start releasing this data.
I don't think any con ever even thought of releasing data like this.
Or even, I'm pretty confident most cons don't even gather that data.
Possibly.
Because I have asked conventions where we attended, and I saw a staffer with a clicker count the number of people in the room. And then months after the con, I'd ask the convention, hey, how many people were actually in our panel? And no convention has ever been able to answer that question. Ever.
Well, let's wait for someone to ask us that question to be able to answer it.
Yeah, I had 3 panelists ask me, and you know what? I told them exactly.
Yeah.
I did not give them the internal notes, though, because the notes are fair and honest and for Scott's and mine and Kristen's eyes only. So you're not getting that data.
Unless you want it.
I don't know what I would. So far, I'm denying it to everyone because here's the problem.
If someone said, "I want to hear the feedback," I'd be like, "I'm warning you. I haven't looked at the feedback for your panel.
I considered
that,
but
it may be horribly negative, and you might not like it.
Here's the
problem.
I
don't know. Do you still want to hear it? If that is the case,
part of the problem is that if I just say no to everyone, then I don't have to deal with having to decide if I'll even engage on the next level with someone, or I go and look it up and I see like really bad comments about them. But 2, let's say I only respond to people where the comments are good, or at least like not bad, and then I just tell the other people, sorry, we don't have any data. That people will figure out rapidly that we don't have any data is code for your panel was so bad that people wrote bad things about it.
That's why if someone, I say, do you really want to hear it? And then if they really want to hear it and I warn them and then I read it and it happens to be a bad one, I'll just read them the bad one.
I also don't trust, to be perfectly blunt,
That it's accurate?
the kind of, because I trust our staff 100%. And seriously, reading those comments, they're pretty spot on.
Yeah.
But were I to give someone the kind of person who would get the kind of feedback that would make a person like that cry, is the kind of person who would then take the email that I sent them with that data and publish it on the internet, possibly out of context. Thus causing drama. And what's the number 1 rule of running a convention club?
Don't run it like Dashcon.
Yep. So, Dashcon. We're not going to give you guys a play-by-play of everything that went wrong.
You
at
can
Dashcon.
read that on the internet if you
Yes.
want. We also did the same thing. But basically, here's the deal. Somebody made a con, and they were going to make it basically a Tumblr convention, a convention for the Tumblr community and all its different sub-communities.
We talked about this previously.
Which is not a bad idea. Pretty much any internet community of any substantial size can have a successful convention and probably needs one. It's not a bad idea to have one. But this is unofficial, not run by Tumblr or anything. And they had troubles all along the way that you can read about online. And
famous troubles.
Right, big time troubles. They couldn't pay the guests. They couldn't pay the hotel. The things were disorganized.
Like panels didn't show up. Panel rooms were empty. 18
people
plus
who paid to go to the
problems.
convention didn't get to see what they wanted to see because it didn't happen, and they were upset.
They told
the video
the
game
attendees
room had like one TV with one game system on it.
They told the attendees that they needed $17,000 or the con was going to close
It's
early.
unknown if that was a lie or if it was actually true.
The generally just drama-filled, ridiculous bullshit all over the place. Now,
This made news on the internet.
but the point of what we're about to say, the rest of this night of Geek Nights, is that Dashcon was a disaster. Don't get us wrong.
No question.
Dashcon was a
we
fucking disaster.
We weren't even there, but we could tell that's 100% accurate.
This is a convention where had I attended and bought my badge with cash, I probably would have sued them in small claims court. Had I bought my badge with a credit card, I would have charged back the credit card.
Yep.
Had I donated money to their $17,000 fund, well, one, I wouldn't have.
Meanwhile, the guests that went to their it was the same weekend as Kineticon, right?
I had a coworker, when I came back into the office after Kineticon, they were like, so you were running a convention this weekend, right?
Was it this one? No.
And I was like, yes, I was. You probably read about a convention on the internet. That is not the one I ran. And sure enough.
But guests that went to Dashcon and did not perform and were not paid should have come to Kineticon instead.
Yeah, seriously, welcome to Night Vale. I hope it is not my job to invite guests to Kineticon. However, I've told all the people involved that if I would like them to ask you to come to Kineticon.
Please come to Kineticon.
We will not do anything that Dashcon did to you.
Also, I heard from someone, it may or may not be true, that you live in Brooklyn. Kineticon is way close. We'll fucking drive you there in our zip car.
we're not even joking.
I don't know how many of you people there are.
I will rent the zip van if that's what it
we will
takes.
rent the zip van and we will take you to Kineticon with us.
Yes. We'll make sure you'll stay in the Marriott with all our staff.
We will
if
give you the
have to.
biggest panel room at the best time, which we
Yes.
now have data to figure out when that is.
Yep. Oh, one other interesting fact before we get into the rest of this. So, a lot of attendees of conventions like to complain about shit.
Even when the convention is awesome.
So, I have evidence that these people straight up lie. A large number of the complaints that I personally received about Kineticon, that we were on the panels department for that, were people saying that an event they attempted to go to, the room was full and they were turned away. They lined up and then they couldn't get in. But I have the data on that, and I investigated those cases. Most of the times, most of the panels that people complained were full and they couldn't get into were not in fact full and had 50 to 150
Our staff had
seats.
clickers and counted the number of people in that room, shortly after the panel started, and there were seats open.
So if that is a representative sample of people who attend conventions in general, people just lie about things. However, Dashcon does not appear that there were too many lies about it.
Well, I'm sure, the 100% precise truth is not what was written on the internet, right? There are exaggerations and de-exaggerations.
Yes, I mean,
all
for
this.
example, people
But there's
on the
no
internet,
question it was a disaster.
Well, so a lot of people were writing like teardowns of Dashcon, like as it was happening. And what I found interesting was a lot of the things people were complaining about appeared made up or just didn't make sense. Like one guy wrote a big blog post talking about how Dashcon was operating illegally because the company that runs it is incorporated in one state, but then the event was in a different state. It's like, no, kid.
That's perfectly legal.
You have no idea how companies work at all, do you?
You don't know anything.
It's like people, once they noticed this was happening, were going out of their way to like try to write the biggest list of things they fucked up and things that went wrong. And filtering through all that noise, it was still a disaster of a convention.
Right. But anyway, the reason we want to talk about this is not because of anything with Dashcon specifically. We don't care about Dashcon.
Though I'm
right?
going to bring up examples from Dashcon.
Sure. But conventions fail like this a lot. I've seen many of them all the time throughout history.
When we
it's
showed
not
up-
a rare thing at all. A convention is hard to run, but they're often run by fans who are not experts and don't know what they're doing, but they manage to know enough to at least get the convention to start and get people to show up. And then, because people show up and the people running it fail, bad things go down.
I mean, we've been staff at a lot of conventions. Kineticon for many years, but also Katsucon, we were staff for years. Otakon, we were staff. Some other smaller cons you've never heard of that I won't bother with.
And conventions, their failures are not always total failures or the whole con collapses. Often conventions will have localized failures. That first Ohio con we went to.
Oh my God, that first Ohio
That was
con.
the first con we ever went to. Had localized failures in the video game area.
Yep.
In the panel area, people not showing up. Right.
A lot of their panels just didn't show up. In fact, that's how that's kind of how Geeknights started.
But like the Dealer's Room Artist Alley were small because it was a tiny con, but they didn't fail. They worked. They happened.
Yep.
And
also some of the things that went wrong weren't their fault. Like the hookers, like that wasn't the
that's
con's
just happened to
fault.
be the hotel they chose.
Yep.
Happened to have the,
Or like we went
prostitution
to
ring.
Penguicon in Novi, Michigan, which ended up being an awesome con, but
they're probably the best unreplaceable con ever.
the badges weren't like ready and we couldn't like register or go in or anything. The con started like 4 hours late effectively.
Yep. But the con happened.
It did in the end happen.
Yep.
But so Dashcon. What happened here is very simple. Nerds and fans of things wanted to make an event happen, and they vastly underestimated the amount of actual work it takes to make that happen, and simultaneously, the core group of people who made this convention happen were not a stable group of people who are professional and able to trust each other. It was people who either didn't know each
every
other that
convention
well
ever.
or was one of those drama friend groups.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ever get involved in the staffing or management of a convention and you go to their meetings and you see that the people involved are drama people, quit.
Immediately.
Never staff for a convention that has drama.
Unless
Ever.
you kick all those people out and you run it yourself.
Yes.
And
that
you're
is
not
how-
and you're not those people, which you can't know if you're not those people. Just like that guy doesn't know he's that guy.
Yep. He
You
knows
might-
that other guys are that guy.
Yep. You might
So-
be that.
Why is it so hard to run a convention? Well, one, it's actually not that hard. As much as I said it's hard, it's not hard. It's just hard for most people. It's hard if you are unable to act without drama, read and respond to emails.
Immediately.
Yes. If someone,
All of them.
If someone asks you a question and you can't answer it, you have to already know who could answer that question
Mm-hmm.
and be able to contact them. And that person has to be able to then actually
Mm-hmm.
do what we just said you have to do. Read emails, respond to questions.
Yeah, you also, the main thing is if you're running a whole convention, there's a huge list of things you have to do, and no one just hands you that list. You sort of have to know it. Like, did you know that you need insurance? If you don't know that and you don't buy it, you're fucked.
I've been to many.
But that's the thing. No one tells you need insurance.
Yeah.
If you just decide you're going to run a convention and call a hotel and say, hey, I want to have a convention, they'll say, okay. They expect you to just know all these things that you need.
Yeah, they think that you're an event manager.
Yeah, you have to just know. And
here's another big example. I've asked certain conventions we've gone to. I'm not going to name any names, but they're large ones. And my question was, do you pay ASCAP?
Yep.
They had no idea. And then as a result, I did not ask my follow-up question, which was, we're going to play a bunch of clips of stuff like music in our panel. We're assuming that we're covered by that, too.
I guess you could also pay BMI.
Yeah, depending.
Yeah.
Or questions like, do you have permission to screen that thing that you're screening in that room?
Did you know that you needed permission to show this movie to people in this room? Is that a thing that you knew you had to have?
Those are professional-looking radios that your staff are using. Are you licensed to use that kind of radio in this state? That is a question that needs to be... Or, oh, you've got a nice wireless microphone system. What year did you buy that? That might be a felony.
Did you rent that from a company? Did they have a union? Did you know that the union's going to stop working at such and such hour? Did you? Oh, you want to load things to the loading dock. Did you know that you had to pay a union to do that because it's a union building?
Do you know what a fire marshal looks like? Have you seen him yet?
Do you know what the fire marshal's going to look for?
Yes. Do you know what to say to a fire marshal?
And these are only the things that we know that you have to check for. Some of the things that we know you have to check for. There are many other things that you must do that we have not mentioned that you won't know. And
So-
if you fuck any of them up, you risk fucking everything up.
But really...
Oh, did you know that if you call the tickets to the convention tickets, that many states, most in fact, have ticket tax that you have to pay?
Yeah,
You're
I'll
not
bet
going
you're
to
not
get-
paying that.
Yeah, if you don't pay the ticket tax, you could go to jail.
Yeah.
Possibly.
So that is
For
why...
tax evasion.
That's why most conventions you go to, they sell you a membership
into
to their...
nonprofit organization.
Yes. Also, how is your convention run? Is there a company involved? Is there an LLC or a corporation? If it's just you and there's no corporation
You're a
involved,
sole proprietorship.
well, not even. We're talking like you just run the convention and do it all yourself. Well, guess what? You're the one who personally gets sued if something happens.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah. Also, if you form a nonprofit, like a 503c or whatever, there's rules about what content you can and cannot have at your event.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Why do
Oh.
you think so many anime cons have such a bug up their butt about not having content that doesn't fit their charter?
Well,
There's some
because A, they don't want to have non-anime content for
two,
reals,
there are
but also they have
legal
to.
ramifications to going outside of their charter,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard to change that charter. That's why my advice to you is, if you ever run a convention, you should run it from like an LLC. I'm not a lawyer, by the way, and you should run it for profit, even if you are in effect a nonprofit.
All right, so that's pretty much covers all.
Yeah.
The other thing, though, is that you look at a failed convention like this, right? And when a convention fails,
The people who attend it, who run it, are claiming that it succeeded, by the way.
whatever.
Because they've announced 2015. They've announced the venue for it.
It's sort of a miracle that even when a convention fails, people can still manage to hold another one.
Well, what amazes me is that people go to these things and don't realize what a disaster it was. It's like, have you never been to another convention? And the answer to that appears to be no.
Yep.
Most of the people who went to Dashcon appear to have never been to a convention
They
like
don't know
this
anything
ever.
about conventions.
Yep.
But then they feel like they can post on the internet like they know everything.
Yep. And we know the staff had not been to a lot of conventions either, because one thing I've noticed among nerd cons is that, for good or ill, the people who run them, the ones that have succeeded and continue to exist, like Otakons and Katsukons and Magfests and things like that, they went to a lot of nerd cons, saw things that were
They
run a certain
staffed
way.
at other cons.
Yep. And then when they rise through the ranks and start running their own conventions or running bigger events, they kind of just do things the way all the other cons do. Like, there's an unspoken rule of like, this is just kind of how you do rear
Well, you
edge.
learn working at one convention, and you take the things you learn and you just repeat them at the other
Yep.
one. You know,
So, like, submit a panel to pretty much any nerd con, even like New York Comic Con. It's all pretty much the same process. Submit a panel to Dashcon. Well, we talked about that at length on Geeknights. It's like the people who wrote this policy had literally never heard of a convention and came up with like their idea of how panels should go at a convention. Quote, as a panelist, you'll be expected to think on your feet and adapt quickly, blah, 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 blah. You will be expected to attend all required briefing sessions.
what?
Held
What do
mostly
you need
in
a briefing
Skype,
for?
along with one in-person briefing session held just before the actual start of the convention. You will be expected to attend all the panels to which you are assigned.
They assign. Okay.
You will be expected to act in a way that does not upset our guests or tarnish the convention name. You will respect the authority of the Dashcon staff. So long as you do not feel the direction of the staff endangers the mental, physical, and emotional well-being of you. You'll be expected to understand that panels.
That was written by people who are on
Yeah, it's for sure.
For sure. Anyway.
Oh my God, this just keeps going.
Right.
Oh my God, this thing's like 100.
Man.
Basically, they form these like committees of people for different types of content, and then those people who were vetted by this ridiculous process would then like put together these panels, and then you only got reimbursed. Like if you ran a panel, you still had to pay for your badge. You got the badge for the day of the panel that you ran refunded to you
Whoa.
if 100 people attended the panel.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
People just coming up with stuff that sounds good.
Well, it doesn't even sound good.
Well, it sounds good to them, that knowing nothing, right?
Yep. Yeah, this form wants my birthday. The form to submit a panel to this is longer than any form I've ever submitted to any convention in my entire life.
But anyway, the point is when a convention fails.
Have you ever been convicted of a felony?
No.
If so, please explain.
Okay. When a convention fails like this, right, there's mega collateral damage, right? That one person sucking at running conventions hurts all these other people, the attendees, the guests, pretty much anyone involved gets hurt. Some people traveled a long way, took vacation days, spent money, and went to a thing and had a subpar experience and wasted all the time. They have a right to be upset, and they should be upset, right, at the people who sold them a raw egg, but they should be slightly upset at themselves. I know that's victim blaming, but you should know. You should be able to tell that convention is shitty and not go to it.
I buy raw eggs all the time.
Right, and it's your fault if you get poisoned.
Raw eggs are it's just an egg. I bought an egg.
Anyway.
Why would I expect it to not be raw? I wouldn't buy an egg that was pre-cooked.
I drank raw milk and I died. What? it's like, come on. But it's really not any different from all the other things people fail at, nerds and not nerds. People try to do things they don't know how to do all the time, self-included, right?
Yep.
How many people, try to write a video game and they don't know how to code and it just fails completely?
Yeah. How many people try to do a podcast?
Yeah, and it
Start
fails
talking to
completely.
microphones.
Yeah, the only difference is when people do those things, it doesn't make the news because no one else suffers.
Yeah,
maybe the person who did it doesn't even suffer.
If you listen to those early episodes of Geeknights, like the beta episodes, the only person who was harmed by those was you.
Right. It's like, and you can just stop listening. It's not like, you traveled and took out a hotel, used vacation days, and bought tickets to Geeknights, and then it sucked. It's like you turned it on, it sucked, and you turned it off 2 seconds later, and that's life. Right? It's not a big deal. So it's like when a convention fails, it makes the news, but it's really not any different from anyone failing at any other sort of thing.
Yep. But
if you look at why these people failed at this convention, look at any of the things you fail at in your life, and it's the same thing that happened to you when you tried to do something and sucked.
Though with the convention, I think what really happened here with Dashcon was that the people involved were young, inexperienced, naive, and there was obviously drama because I'll link to this. Dashcon put out a couple of different versions of this, and they seem to have tried to remove bits over time, but they have this giant explanation of separating fact from fiction, an official statement. I read this whole thing. To summarize it, we're all fuck-ups, and this is our attempt to try to make ourselves look a little less like fuck-ups.
We know how to write.
We are.
We don't know how to run a convention, but we know how to write.
This reads like the 5-year-old that you find in his bedroom with the pie that he stole from the kitchen, smashed all over his bed, and he's trying to explain to you the series of events.
Mom,
that
I can
this to
explain
happen,
this,
and how it was not his fault.
He's a really smooth talker, but that pie is still all over the place.
Yep. I'm looking at the pie. He's like, well, there might have been a pie. Someone else was responsible for the pie.
Right.
I'm just responsible for the room the pie ended up in.
So let's talk about some other failed conventions from history.
From history?
Yeah. What failed conventions can we think of?
The only convention I've been to that I would consider a failure was Ceticon.
Yeah.
Because as a person who uses the internet, I saw Dashcon as a disaster coming from the day it was announced that they were accepting panel submissions.
I didn't even know it was a thing until I read the stories about it failing, and I was like, oh, I guess this thing happened.
Well, they emailed me asking if we were going to be at Dashcon. I assumed it was some My Little Pony thing. So I was like, yeah, no,
Oh,
we're
because
not.
Rainbow Dash.
Yeah, I was like, no, we're not going to that. I didn't even like look up what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then like Mike Toole, I think, tweeted something about like, oh my God, look at this Dashcon panel submission thing. And I clicked on this expecting to make fun of some bronies.
So you knew about it before the convention happened.
Yes. As reading this page, which I'll also link to, the page on panel submissions. If you as a human being read this page and do not see that this convention is going to be a disaster from that point, you're the kind of person who's going to get scammed into buying a stereo from a guy in a white van.
Mm-hmm.
Dashcon was a guy selling you a really expensive stereo system for way cheap out of the back of a white van in like the parking lot of a Sears. I have almost no sympathy for the people who attended this convention. So as a result, I have not experienced convention failures because I see them coming and avoid them. CityCon, we were paid to go to.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? They didn't fuck up even close to the degree of Dashcon because we got our hotel room.
Yep.
We got everything was compensated.
Mm-hmm.
All that stuff worked.
All the events happened.
Yes. The Geeknights meet and greet. We showed up to run it. Everything was fine. The room was there. Microphones were there. No attendees. So then we
Wasn't there
went.
one attendee?
One attendee. It was one of our fellow guests who came in to see what was up because no one was at their panel. And then the three of us left the room and went to the fast karate room. We're like, hey, what are you guys up to? And they're like, hanging out in this empty panel room. And then we eventually all converged on the Happy House of Hentai meet and greet panel.
That actually had people at it.
Yes, all of us and a few other people. And then we hung out.
But yeah, just no attendance
Yeah.
caused the not so success of that convention.
We pretty much sat in the room that was like the guests' room. Like imagine the hall where like all the guests sit at their table and you can like get autographs. So all of us who were paid to be there just kind of sat in that room, hanging out. No one came in at any point who wasn't one of us. I walked over to the dealer's room and there were like 10 or 15 people walking around. There were people who went to the cosplay thing at the end, but that was a disaster because they asked us to judge it.
I don't know anything about judging
I know.
cosplay. I judged the one that looked best.
I was looking at people's stitching and I was like, I don't know, 4 out of 5 stitchings. Sorry, kid. I don't know if you bought this from a store. I don't even know what character this is. I don't understand enough about costuming to look at your reference material.
That one definitely looks better than the other one to me. If it was on the internet and it was a hot or not, I would pick that
Yep.
one.
There was that first New York Comic-Con.
Oh yeah, they failed because they sold out. They had people showed up who couldn't get in.
Yeah, that was a professional event and they fucked it up big time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when guests can't get in to run their own panels because the fire marshal has shut you the fuck down.
Yep.
That's it, though. I haven't really run afoul a lot of these conventions. I mean, I've heard a lot of tell of smallish gaming cons.
Well, how many Rudicons failed?
Well,
Did they even count? Did it even like technically happen?
so, you know, actually, that's a good example because that was the first convention I ever staffed. I was asked, well, tricked by hook and crook. I joined the staff and I became the webmaster for this convention.
Oh.
And then I went to the first meeting, and the meeting was about how we as a convention are going to apologize to the vendors from the previous year for straight embezzling their money and thanking them for not involving the police. And I was
How
like,
could
nope,
you embezzle?
nope.
How
nope.
could you possibly embezzle a vendor's money?
Openly. So what they did,
The vendors give you money for the space. They come in and they sell things and collect money for themselves.
so there was a currency at the convention called, I think, Rutabucks, and you could win them in events. They counted as dollars in the dealer's room. The dealers would then get cash from the convention after
they
it
just
was
didn't
done.
give them the cash for the Rutabucks.
Pretty much.
Okay.
There were a lot of Rutabucks.
Okay.
So, yeah.
They just handed them out like candy.
I have no idea. That was before we were even at RIT.
If I was a vendor, I'd be like, "Fuck your Rutabucks."
They're basically the
Is Andrew Jackson's face on that shit? No. You ain't getting nothing from me.
It's that currency in Itchy and Scratchy Land.
Yeah. Bits.
Yeah.
Dogecoin. Not taking your Dogecoin.
But basically, seriously, when it comes to, I feel like we could do a separate, I don't want to do a Geeknights on this. I almost want to do like a separate YouTube series of like every area of a convention. Like, dude, if you're seriously going to run it, like, here's the playbook on how to run this shit. Because if you read this Dashcon thing, most of their excuses come down to, well, Jenny Shabadoo was responsible for that, and she didn't respond to an email, so I wasn't able
The
to
first
get
thing
the
we
blog.
said about ordering a successful convention, reading and responding to emails immediately.
Yeah, it's pretty much just nothing but passing the bucks around because these kids had no idea what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really just summed up by that ball pit.
Buck stops here. Who is the con chair?
I don't even know, but it appears that
If
there
you're the
was...
con chair and you email someone, they don't email you back. It's on you.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Like, in the old days, like, before we got Kristen and other people, like, to help us, like, if something went wrong, like, I had a panelist come up to me, and they were like, we were promised a hotel room, and we don't have one, and we need somewhere to sleep tonight. And there was no one I could go to above me to deal with that. That was my responsibility to figure out what the fuck happened there, and I had to deal with it. And you know what? I dealt with it.
Mm-hmm.
People at Dashcon didn't deal with it. They just kind of let it all slowly collapse around themselves. This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geeknights is not one, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.